Okay, let's have some fun. Let's sit down. So I want to welcome you to to tell you a little bit about myself. Victor kind of shared some things with you, but he's right. I am a systems guy, and that started when I worked at McDonald's when I was 16. Nobody does a better system than McDonald's. That is, they can have snotty-nosed teenagers actually running a multi-million-dollar business. It's an amazing company, and throughout my entire career, I'm in high-level meetings, and I'm talking about McDonald's. Can you believe that? Because it's just really amazing. Who knows anything about NLP? Okay, right? Do you know what NLP stands for?
You have it in your program.
Neuro linguistic programming. Okay, what is NLP? Before we get into that, I want to first kind of give you an idea of what we're going to go over. This is going to be this is a 2-day seminar. And we're going to go as much into it as we possibly can. If we can go through the entire thing, then we will. If not, then we will have to come back the next day, and you guys will have to look at me all over again. So is that fair?
I don't know.
Okay. Alrighty. So what we're going to do is we're going to learn what NLP is. And then we're going to explore exactly how NLP works. And then we're going to use we're going to talk about how to use NLP to communicate better and achieve your desired experiences. Okay? Neuro-linguistic programming, neural of the brain, mind, senses, linguistic is using language to give meaning. Programming, patterns of thought and behavior. That's some fancy light stuff going on, right? And NLP was created back in the mid-1970s by two gentlemen, John Grinder and Richard Bandler. Just a point of fact, I was real envious. One of my best friends got an opportunity to do 6 days of training last week with Bandler himself. And he's a client of mine also, but when he was sharing with me, I was salivating at the thing because they're in Florida for 6 days of human design engineering using NLP, and I was just very, 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 I wish I could have went. So it was originally designed to study the works of the great therapists, Freud, Carl Rogers, Jung and Satir, Pearls and Milton Erickson. And what it is a blending of John Grinder's, what you call his linguistic knowledge, and Bandler's, his computer skills. And you have to imagine back in the 70s, there wasn't a whole lot of computering going on. I mean, we're talking about tubes and punch cards and that sort of thing. So, but that was his expertise, and he was high in the field. So the two of them, they kind of blended this technology, and what they were able to do was they analyzed the patterns of these great therapists in such a way to where they could figure out what their work was based on. And just these two guys in the mid-70s, it was groundbreaking technology. Okay, so with this constant observation that they did of how it worked. And quote, I'm saying what worked because that's the whole thing. Their system was based on figuring out what worked and what worked all the time. And so they were able to assemble a collection of proven techniques and strategies, in addition to analyzing and understanding these patterns of what these highly successful therapists, what their work was based on, okay? And to really get into exactly how the NLP works, we need to understand a few things. The NLP comes from the fact, as far as the NLP technology is concerned, it's a, what do you say, it's how everyone sees life differently, right? I see life a certain way. You see life a certain way. We all have a certain way based on our experiences of how we see life. And based on how we see that, and those experiences are going to determine what our primary mode of learning is. We have a primary and a dominant mode. We use different modes, but for the most part, we stick with certain ones, okay? And those filters are our personal experiences, our culture, our emotions, our beliefs, and we respond to those experiences based on our internal interpretation of how the world is. And as we do that again and again and again, we form these belief patterns. And these belief patterns are things that we come to believe, and then we go to act on at some time in the future. So in the process of developing the technology, what they discovered was, and we've all heard the saying, you can see a person's soul through his eyes, right? Well, they discovered that that is exactly true. In fact, based on how a person moved their eyes when they were responding to something, they could figure out what mode they were in. So if you look at the chart here, now this is someone who's looking straight at you. So if you're looking at this person and you ask them a question, and if their eye movement moves up and to your right, then they're visually remembering something. If it moves up and to the left, then they are, let's say, visually constructing something. So they're trying to construct something in a visual manner. If they move from side to side, then that's what we call an auditory mode. And if they move to the right, then that mode is they are remembering a type of a sound. If they move to the left, they are constructing some type of a sound in their mind. And if their eyes move down and to the right, then they're in some sort of an auditory type of form. And if it moves down and to the left, then they're feeling something, or we call that a kinesthetic mode. Okay. And so let's this is a better picture of it, and what I'd like you to do is actually study that, because we're going to do something a little bit later. So I want you to look at this picture. I want you to imagine looking at this picture and imagine someone talking to you and you looking at their eyes. And again, when people look up, they're visualizing. When they look horizontally to the left and to the right, then they're either remembering or they're constructing sounds. When they look downward and to our left, then they're accessing their feelings. And when they look downward and to the right, then they're talking to themselves in an auditory form. So, and these are just a couple of important things to remember. When we access our brain, we usually move our eyes in the particular direction that conforms to that of the part that neurology is at. And the mind and the body are connected in such a way to where you can fool somebody else, but you can't fool yourself. And if you look at these certain keys and tools with people, you can always figure out how they feel about something or how they're going to react to something. If you can do that, then you can pretty much set the stage for whatever it is that you want life to be. If you want to see something a certain way, just pay attention. Now, people rely on their senses and, as I said, to make these internal representations. So what I'd like everybody to do, we're going to do a little exercise. And I would like everybody to pair up. Victor, there's 10 of us, so we're going to take a few minutes. Everybody pair up. And what I want you to ask the other person is this. I want you to ask the person to remember some type and event in their life. Just think of something to remember some type of an event. And I want you to look at their eyes and see where they go. So let's go ahead and take a few minutes to do this. You guys pair up together, and we have an extra person over here. No, Victor's going to do the camera. We have an extra person over here. From someone, what did you think? Were you able to visually see what was going on with their eyes? Huh?
We were able to see where.
Okay, and where did they move?
To the right.
Right.
And to the left for me.
Okay. Now, one of the things that I didn't mention is that this is for right-handed people. If you're left-handed or ambidextrous, you kind of want to reverse it in most cases. However, that doesn't always happen. There's such a small percentage of people. For the most part, you can pretty much count on somebody being right-handed and doing it on those occasions where you notice. Then you just want to switch it around. Okay. Okay, so there are some people who usually exist in a visual mode. There are people who exist in an auditory mode, and then there are others who exist in a kinesthetic mode. And one person, you can exist in all three of them at certain times, but we generally tend to favor one or the other. So there are things that you can do if you just watch them, and we're going to talk about those a little bit later. Things that you can do to really determine what mode someone is primarily in. Okay, so the three modes again are visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. So let's talk about visual people. Visual people they typically stand more erect, and they sit erect also, with their heads and their bodies erect and their eyes up, and they breathe from the top of their lungs. So if you notice people that have these, this short breathing, always anticipating something, and they're breathing from the top of their lung. They tend to be more organized, neat, well groomed. They often sit forward in front of the chair like Donna is. They're more deliberate. They're more appearance oriented. Okay. They usually memorize things by making pictures, right? So they always have these pictures in their head. They don't hear anything, but they can vividly see something in their head. They often have trouble remembering verbal instructions. If you've ever known those people that they can't remember the last thing you said 2 minutes ago, there's a slight chance that they're probably visual people. Okay, they get bored by long verbal explanations. They're less distracted by noise, and they would rather read than be read to, which is the opposite of an auditory person and a kinesthetic individual. And they appreciate getting these attractive gifts because things are visual to them, right? And they use words like see you later, I want to look at it, let's focus on it, watch it, be clear, foggy. They use these visually inclined words. And an auditory person, on the other hand, they will kind of move their eyes side to side, like I said, from left to right. And they will also move down and to the right frequently. They breathe from the middle of their chest as opposed to the top or the bottom. So they don't have these real shallow breaths, but they don't have really deep breaths either. And you can sit and watch people as they sit and just watch the way they breathe, and that'll give you a good clue. Most of picking up things from people comes from just being observant. And if you're observant, there's a lot of things that you would recognize that you wouldn't normally recognize, and you really get a really good insight on people. They often move their lips when they form words. They memorize steps and procedures and that sort of thing. And they also are very interested in being told how they're doing. They're real keen on the tone of something. Something sounds like. So if you get these people that always say, my wife is like that, she's like, I don't like your tone. Or did you have to say it that way? She's an auditory person, right? And so kinesthetic people they are typically they're breathing from the bottom of their lungs. And so they will take these real deep breaths, and their posture is a little bit more slumped. They don't sit up straight. They kind of slump in their seats. They move as they talk, and they move really, really slow, like, and their feelings are very important. So they feel things. They use words that would make you think that they're really in touch with themselves. And they use words like grasp and handle and get in touch, hold, that type of thing. So now the question is, how do we use these three modes to achieve those desired experiences, right? That's what we want to know. And so it's about building rapport. And the basis of rapport is that when people are like each other, they like each other, right? Have you ever heard that? When people are like people are like each other, they like each other. We all like the people that seem to be just like us, don't we? They seem to be the same. They seem to just get it. And what we do is we use the mirror principle in action. And so a lot of rapport building is what we call matching and mirroring. So I remember in the early 90s, I was in the tech field, and I was in database, and I was over someone who was running this job every single day, and it was for franchise tax board, and I was supposed to be monitoring them and watching them to make sure that they did what they were supposed to do. Well, 2 weeks later, somebody found out that the entire taxpayer database for the state of California was corrupt. All 16 million records. And it literally took us 2 weeks to get it back on track. So we had this 8 o'clock meeting and this 5 o'clock meeting every single day with all the hooies and head honchos in there in the meeting. And I remember sitting at the table. I'm I'm 31 at the time, and I remember thinking that everybody was blaming me. Nobody said it was my fault, right? But I felt it, and so I found myself. I had learned about NLP, and I found myself trying to match and mirror the big guy. So when he put his coffee cup up, I put my coffee cup up. When he moved his hand, I moved my hand. When he did this, I did that. I was trying to get in rapport, to build that relationship. And it actually worked. When I actually, then you can lead them. So then after you build rapport with people, now you can lead them to do what you want to do. And so I would do something else, and then not only would he do it, but 3 other people on the table would actually do it. So I didn't know I was building rapport with a few people. So that was quite interesting. 6 elements of building rapport. Match the modality. So match the tonation, match the, get in touch with whether or not they're visual, kinesthetic, or auditory. You want to match their modality. The second thing that you want to do is you want to physically mirror that person's physiology. That's what I was doing when the person picked up his coffee cup. I picked mine up. When he moved this way, when he just slouched back in his chair, I slouched back in my chair. I was actually matching his physiology. You want to match their voice, their tone, their tempo, and their volume. If somebody's talking like this, then you talk like that. If somebody's talking like this at a whisper, then you talk at a whisper. You want to match their tone and their feeling. People get the feeling, and what you don't realize is when they leave you, and that person says, I really like that guy. He's just like me. Have you ever done that with someone? You had a good talk with someone and you just felt like you guys were such kin? You didn't know it, but you guys were matching and mirroring each other. He was matching you or you were matching him, one of the two. But we do it all the time, but by hit and miss. So I'm trying to show you how to do it each and every time. So for match their breathing, you can tell how someone is breathing. If someone is taking deep breaths, you take deep breaths. If they're taking shallow breaths, you take shallow breaths. You're actually matching them, and your physiology is actually meshing with them. Match the size of the pieces of the information. This is important. They don't talk about this a lot, but this, it is really, really key. If they're big picture people, they don't like details. So don't give them details. If they like details, don't give them the big picture. So you want to match the type of information that they like to get and how they like to receive it. And then match their common experiences. We all do this now. Everyone at this table, I'm sure, has a certain way of how we get rapport with someone. Someone says they like to travel. Oh, I like to travel too. Someone says this, oh, I like to do it. That's a way that we normally do it, but there are other ways that in addition to that you can almost 100% of the time get rapport with someone by adding those other pieces. Okay? Now, have you ever matched and mirrored a prospect, say, 5 to 10 minutes? And when you do that, this is how you will know whether or not you're in rapport with them. If you match and you mirror them for 5 to 10 minutes, and then you try to lead them, and now if they're matching you, that lets you know that you're in rapport with them. If they don't, then you're not. So you just go back to square one and start matching and mirroring and matching their tonality again. Okay? So what to practice when you leave here? If you all want to practice building rapport with someone, then here's some steps that I want to give you. Establish rapport with as many people as you can over the next coming week. For example, practice when you go to the restaurant, at work. Practice building rapport with the waiter. Practice rapport. There are certain things that you can do. Instance, I did this in my early 20s. I was in a hotel bar, and I was trying to match and mirror this woman that was sitting at the bar, and I don't think I did it right because I think she got a certain impression that I didn't want her to have. She might have thinking maybe I was a little feminine. So you want to be careful how you match and mirror someone. So, and with practice, you can do it. Match and mirror someone that's near you in a restaurant wherever you are. Walking down the street, match and mirror somebody. You're sitting somewhere, match and mirror somebody. Just consciously practice it when you think about it. And when you go up to a counter, match and mirror mirror somebody. They got the counter. You know, you're always trying to make a fun. Me, I'm always trying to be a funny at the counter, and generally they're not where I want to be. So instead of matching them, I'm trying to get them to me. It usually doesn't work that well. But in any event, I want to thank you guys for coming out today. And if we had more time, I would actually, and we could do this in the next session. We could talk about putting people in different states, pre-framing, anchors, and then the 4 steps to anchoring people. So when we come back from lunch, this is what we're going to talk about next, okay? So get ready, have a good lunch, and we'll see you in about an hour and a half. Thank you. Mr. Toastmaster.